Hello, we're live. Morning, Facebook friends. It's Bernadette and Kapil again. We are going to talk about colluding today. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. So, what is
Wake up
colluding?
Saturday. Wake up on Saturday.
That's right, 9 o'clock on Saturday, we talk about colluding. Um, so, what is colluding? It's the place where we agree with someone in order to prove that um, their point of view about someone else is true.
Hmm.
So we'll go into examples, but it's very subtle, and it's such an
Hmm.
important thing that we do that with our friends. And there is some conditioning around men and women dynamics that we'll go into today. But essentially, what you're doing, like the way it came across was I had a couple of instances recently where I saw a post from a friend on Facebook where they agreed with an opinion of a woman where she was talking about her husband and her husband doing something that she didn't
Wrong.
like,
Yeah.
wrong, or that did she like. And this
Yeah.
person agreed with the woman and saying, "Oh, uh, that must be pretty hard." And it's an easy thing to say, but suddenly what he's doing in that moment is he's proving that her ideas about her husband are correct, and it moves her away from finding a solution, finding a point of connection with with her husband. So
Hmm.
we're gonna go more in detail about that. It's like it's omnipresent, this thing. Like we do that in subtle ways all the time, and we'll talk about like and to be honest, that is not being a good friend to that person. So we're going to
Hmm.
talk about how these things happen, what's happening underneath, and how can you be a good friend to people, and the difference between being sympathetic about towards someone versus having empathy, and that's the difference. So let's go into that. Hi, Bernadette.
Hello.
So what we've been having a little bit of fun talking about this earlier.
Yes.
Why don't you start
Yes.
with what I just said and what resonates with you, and in addition, you want to add something
Yes.
to it.
Yes. I want to focus on what what's behind trying to collude with somebody, and I can see that when it emerged the sense that I want to literally take my phone and text or call somebody that I know in advance is going to agree with me and tell me, yes, you're right, that person is an asshole, you were so entitled to be angry and whatever. uh what I really am trying to do is trying to connect. So if in that point, if I'm very triggered, if I'm very upset, the only option I have is a very poor form of connection, which is seeking for collusion, seeking for somebody to agree with what I say without challenging it. And that has a place. I think you can ask a friend to be like, can I just like rant and but your friend just remains silent. That is a different quality. But when your friend engages in the bashing of another human being, it actually increases the level of disconnection, not only with yourself, with what you really are, what you really feel, but with your friend,
Right.
because now your friend knows that that's the kind of shit you do. and and you know that your friend is the kind of person who does that too, and you both agree very covertly
Yeah.
to not call each other out on that type of bullshit, and to be that type of person, and you increase this connection with yourself, with your friend, and with the person who actually you're having that level of emotion or intensity or triggering, and truth goes out of the window. There is at that point, truth is the thing that you don't want to hear. And in a way, it keeps you in a stand where you're the smartest person in the room for your own mind. Like,
Right.
I knew it, I was right from the very beginning. Oh, I love that.
Right. So let's talk about what's happening underneath that, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and especially, if you're in pain and if you're like you've had an experience
Mm-hmm.
with someone, you're like, like I am right, they are wrong. You
I
want
know.
other people. to prove that to you, especially your closest friends. And
Mhm.
in my experience, like when I've been in that spot, I want to go to a friend of mine and say, see, that person did that to me, do you agree? And you're like, yeah, 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 Kapil, I agree, that person is a bastard.
Yeah, yeah, and to be honest, I know I can rationalize everything in such a good way that people will buy my bullshit,
Right.
and be like, that guy was such dickhead, he tricked me into having sex with it, and do it all the time when I know that's not true, but I want to feel that my upset is valid and
Right.
entitled, and the
Yeah.
other person caused it, so.
So let's talk about some like typical men women conditioning that plays out here. Like,
Mhm.
so one way I have seen it, men do it when, especially
Mhm.
when they are talking to women.
Mhm.
Here's one example. A man is attracted to a woman while
Mhm.
she may or may not be attracted, and she has someone else she's interested in, like there's another man in the
Mhm.
picture or another woman in the picture, whatever it is. And so men, you use the word beheading. So like, I would behead another man to build my rapport with this woman, right?
Mhm.
So that's a typical male conditioning where we would look at uh, any ways of letting another man down so that I can score brownie points with this
Mhm.
person, with this woman, because I'm interested in, like, I'm attracted to them, or I want to have sex or whatever it is. It's like, and that's
Mhm.
that's a way of getting in their good books, sympathizing with their problems, so
Mhm.
that I can score some points with um, with a hope that at some point I get in their pants.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So,
that's a typical male conditioning that plays out,
yeah, I was
and it's
gonna
so
say,
subtle.
it sometimes it's called trying to step out of the friend zone. It happens with women, I was also that kind of woman, very often like, I give you my shoulder to cry about my
Yeah, right,
feelings.
right, right. And it's not even that dramatic sometimes. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you say something to me about your partner that you don't like, and I'm like, oh yeah, Bernadette, that's so shitty of him to do something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
It's like,
you
what a
know,
dick,
what a dick, what a dick.
Yeah.
And suddenly what I've done is I've reinforced your views about something,
Mhm.
that relates to this person, and it takes you away from finding connection with your partner. And the
Mhm.
hope I have is that it pulls you towards me,
Yeah.
and I have a better chance of like a deeper intimacy or connection. So that's one thing I see with men that happens a lot. Um,
Mhm.
and here's another thing, and this is me talking to women. Uh, and here's one example. What I see is that someone would come and talk to me about, like, oh, this happened with another man, and
Mhm.
that when I want to bring it down so that it's easily available. So I had someone, a friend of mine, came to me who had an experience with another man, and she didn't like it, and she was like, oh, what's your opinion as a man? I was like, oh, I shouldn't be the one giving you the opinion. Have
Mhm.
you spoken to other women? Have you spoken to your sisters about it? And what I found out was that other women reinforced
Oh, you went for a few seconds. I don't know if you can.
of a doubt
Mm.
where there was some anger towards the masculine, and that
Mm.
got reinforced in this conversation. So, and I'm like, no, I shouldn't be the one talking about something like that. Like, you need to have sisters who can tell you the truth.
Mhm.
Because as a man, whatever I can say, there's a level of mansplaining that comes into something like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so I want you to talk about, like, what happens within the sisterhood, within like women connecting you with other women,
Hmm.
where they don't tell each other the truth at that level.
Uh, there is a very covert agreement. Very quickly, you get to grips in any group of women. It takes you seconds to realize how much truth you can bring into the table without getting emotionally attacked, because the violence with women, as we've discussed before, is not that somebody's going to punch me, but somebody's going to make an off comment to prove a point that I'm stepping the mark.
Right.
And to renegotiate that takes time and takes a lot of willingness from everybody. uh, but the default point to that I've often experienced is that people don't tell each other the truth. So a friend comes and tells me, my boss is a dickhead, did all this, da 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 da. uh it's expected to agree that the boss is a dickhead, not to put in question, like, why do you put yourself in that situation? you know and and I know there is a part that, if somebody says, I just need to express my feelings, then you don't say anything, and the other person express, and you're like, okay, you're just like listening. But it's not that. It's like there is the expectation that whatever comment you're gonna say is gonna be like, you're right, he's a dickhead, and this is the things that you could do. And 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 you can have people who are very self-obsessed, that it doesn't matter, the conversation peaked, you moved, and now you're talking about the next film, and they're like, what she said, da, da, da. And it's going back to like, I need to grab my attention, and then and take that resentment and expand it and
Right.
expand it, and now take you in my resentment, because I've had occasion where people express resentment about other people, and I think that is not impacting me. But later, I start thinking, I hate that person. And it's not even
Right.
my fucking
Right.
problem,
Oh my God.
It's just
Thank
because
you for saying that.
I unconsciously colluded with that human being.
I am certainly noticing that lately about certain, like my some of my old friends who, when I
Mm-hmm.
think about them, I have some kind of like resentment towards them. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually have my own resentment, but somewhere I've picked up other people's resentment and now I hate them too. And
You
like,
see, that's the disadvantage of colluding.
right. So suddenly, this person who my conversations, my links with them are
Mm-hmm.
totally clean and clear, but somehow I've picked up this residue from someone
Mm-hmm.
else and I hate them too. And I have resistance
Mm-hmm.
connecting with them. So that's a really good point. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening underneath. You said
Mm-hmm.
about the discomfort part of it. So usually my understanding is that we go into this place of sympathy. Whatever the
Mm-hmm.
motivation is, that we go into this place of sympathy with other person instead of like holding space and empathizing with their situation. So
Mm-hmm.
sympathy would be like agreeing with them, so we collude with them, while empathizing would
Mm-hmm.
be to just say, "Oh, okay, I hear you." Like we all need space for ranting,
To hear,
like,
yeah, to rant,
right?
yeah.
So it's like, okay, yeah, I understand you're letting your stuff out, so I can hold space for that, but I don't necessarily agree with everything that you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so let's talk about that. Like, why do we do that? And what's the idea of sort of discomfort and not being able to feel the discomfort?
Well, first, when you seek, well, that's my experience. I'm gonna talk about myself. When I seek to collude, is because there is something that I'm feeling that I'm not quite happy about feeling it. So, let's say I feel betrayed, and instead of saying, I put myself in a situation that I knew it was not gonna turn out okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel the responsibility of treating myself in such a way that I ended up in a betrayal or something. I don't even want to think about it. That's miles away from where I want to be. So as an addict, the addict that I am, I will try to seek a way not to feel that. And I've used alcohol, I've used drugs, I've used other people, and this is a situation. Collusion is a situation where you're gonna seek other people to take you out of that, to put you in a position that your mind agrees more than what you really are feeling.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to say, he lies to me. I can't trust him. rather than to say, I don't know, how to trust myself enough to pick the right people, because that takes a lot more, courage, and a lot more gravity. And maybe, and I know, I speak for myself, that going from a position where I know I am at the source is really, really difficult, especially when you don't have any people to copy from. As I was telling you, try to find a show where people take responsibility for their experience on real time. No, like, it usually takes the entire episode to take a minimal amount of responsibility, and it doesn't really change. The character is the same the next episode. So, um, it's just finding that, and then, as I am, finding another person who, and we're very clever at doing it, who's gonna agree with our point of view, and
Oh
who's
my
gonna
God, yes.
allow basically, we're gonna vomit on them our resentment. And when you're unconscious, not only you're gonna, like, eat the vomit, you're gonna clap. You're gonna be like, thank you for using me as your toilet, and you're gonna spread that. And I did that, and I was also on the other side of that, and that's not being a good friend. We have a misconception of what a good friend is. And when you think about it, really, that point, like, I feel some discomfort, I'm disconnected from my own self. What I'm truly seeking is connection with myself, with another human being. I want to be felt in that expression. I want to be in approval of my own feelings. I want to feel the approval of other people, but we can't express that. So the cheap way to do that is to find somebody to collude,
Right.
which is, it's unsustainable. Do you really want, do you want to always be the smartest person in the room? Do you want to prove your mind always right? Usually people who do that end up being the most idiotic people. So it's like, I
Yeah.
don't really want to do that. I want to be proved wrong all the time, and I resent it. But never mind.
Well, I think it's an interesting point about the comfort piece. And, we say that in relationships, if you're not telling the truth, that
Hmm.
has a chance of breaking your relationship, then
Yeah.
you're not telling the truth. And I think
Hmm.
it's also kind of true in the friendships. I think the people we have in our friend circle is our friendships based on comfort
Hmm.
versus let's say growth,
Connection.
let's say connection and growth, where
Hmm.
we're able to tell each other uncomfortable truth, or uh, disagree,
Hmm.
and with some of the points of views. And I think it's down to that idea of not allowing ourselves to feel the discomfort. And I think what's my
Hmm.
understanding of what's happening is that if I want to collude, if I
Hmm.
want to rant, if I want to let something out about another person, I am in discomfort, and I
Hmm.
would go to someone who can share some of my discomfort, right? And what's happening? So if I go to you and say, "Hey, Bernadette, like Lupka did this, and this,"
Hmm.
and you say, and you can feel the discomfort that I have, I'm in some kind of pain, and usually instead of feeling that discomfort that I have in your body, because we don't like feeling discomfort, you're gonna go back and
Yeah,
say,
because
"Oh,
if
yeah,
you're
yeah,
if
yeah, I
you're
agree."
uncomfortable, yeah, if you're uncomfortable and you come and talk to me about it, I'm gonna feel uncomfortable, because I'm all, we're limbic,
Right,
animals. So I'm gonna feel your discomfort. I don't like it. I don't like feeling it in my body. You don't like it either. But
right,
the usual thing is to make it stop. So we try to make it stop by agreeing, and changing the locus of the connection from our bodies to some point in our heads that doesn't really exist.
totally. And it's such a subconscious and subtle thing where the other person would just agree with me, so that we can both let go of that discomfort rather than sitting in it
Hmm.
and letting us feel what's coming up.
Yeah.
So on that note, let's talk a little bit about, like, what does it mean to be a good friend?
Yeah.
We started with that. Like, how can we not collude? So
Yeah.
let's say something about that.
Okay, so this is actually, when we were talking about this thing, my focus really wants to be more on. Okay, we know that this has a strong impact. Colluding has a very, very strong impact to your own psyche, to other people. So let's find ways, and this is the in a way hard part to create from scratch, but little by little it can be done. So the first thing is to start testing the sandbox, start saying truths that are uncomfortable. And a good example of that is when somebody comes with a big problem, crying, and obviously wanting to collude, saying, I'm not the right person to do that. I'm not the
Right.
right person for you. And it's gonna hurt, believe me, because you're gonna feel very likely that the other person will never want to be your friend anymore, because that's
Right.
that there is this threat. This is where guilt tripping and shame is used, like, you're not being my friend in that space. It's like, I am being your friend, and I'm not in the right position to hear you right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I
and
agree.
in to learn to respect boundaries, like, your friends need to have that freedom to say, I'm tapping out, this is not for me right now. And that's a good starter. And start, if your friend has more capacity of hearing what I was telling you, to say, I'm not your coach, I'm not your therapist, I'm not your priest, I'm not your main source of reflection. And if you want to change that, if you want to establish, then we can talk. But direct people, because a lot of people, the collusion is seeking a free coach or therapy or something like that. And it's okay if you want to do that, but it's a lot to take in. Friends are not really for that.
Yeah, I think for me, the another thing I would add is that when colluding, I tend to just shut up when someone's,
Mm-hmm.
ranting. I think
Mm-hmm.
now I've got sort of enough understanding that what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and if I can stay present, what I do is I tend
Mm-hmm.
to just shut up and let them say stuff rather
Mm-hmm.
than using the agreeable language to reinforce their
Mm-hmm.
ideas. Because quite
Mm-hmm.
often, then what I've seen is that people rant and then they themselves say, "Oh, I'm kind of like
Yeah.
way." And another thing when sort of rant,
Mm-hmm.
a good way of connecting with someone is to say, "Oh, look, I just have something bottled up and I want to let it out and I want to rant. Are you
Mm-hmm.
available to just hear me?" And I think
Exactly.
that's where you take responsibility for not making someone else uncomfortable and not putting someone else in a position that they have to collude with you. So I think
Yeah.
just like being upfront about that and having that level of consciousness to say, yep, I'm having this crappy experience and I just want to let it out. I don't want you
Could you
to,
listen? Yeah.
could you listen to me? Yeah. Like I'm just going to talk for 5 minutes. I'm going to talk shit about someone for 5 minutes. And can you just be there and listen,
Yeah, and that's what I was mentioning. Be when somebody asks you for that, be aware of if you're in the capacity of receiving, because you don't want to, that person may just vomit it and forget about whatever distress that person had, but you may take in the resentment. So if you're not feeling particularly in a good shape, just be able to say, no, I'm not the right person, no, no, don't,
Yeah.
let's not do that. And I would say even more advanced, what you said and what I suggested are like the starting points of something. And I want to mention something that is more an advanced version of what I call friendship, which is, and I have that with a very good friend of mine, and with a lot of people actually, but with her is so pristine that for me it's worth mentioning. Where I just go and I literally tell her, I had this experience, and then I saw this, and da da da, and she just listens, and she lets that in, doesn't make me wrong
Yeah.
at all. Maybe in her head it's making, but she doesn't say it. Because that's what I do as well. If she tells me something, I don't make her wrong. I just go and let my body digest. And sometimes we don't reply for a while. Sometimes it's a voice message, and I wait for a day or two. And then she goes, "When you said that, I felt this, I saw this, I thought about this." And it's just that, and literally, it's such a weird way to communicate, because she's just giving me what she sees from her perspective, and I give her what I see from my perspective. And it's so nurturing, because I feel like this is so adult. Like, even if she gets massively triggered, she just sometimes says, like, I don't think I'm in the capacity to listen to this right now, so give me a couple of days. And I'm like, cool. Because many things, I feel so free of talking. I could be like, that guy is a dickhead, but she doesn't collude with me. She
Yeah.
may say, oh, when you mentioned that, it reminded me of a situation I had, and I felt this, da da da. And then, could be so random. But it's such a different level of experience where everybody's taking a lot of responsibility at every level of the communication. And it took me a long time, to work with her and myself as friends, little by little, where truth, if she saw something that she absolutely needed, like you're actually, being going to your victim, she will probably say, can I say something I noticed? Before just like, and then I'll feel like, am I ready to receive that, or I need to rant some more and I need to go somewhere else? And if I'm ready, I just go like, yeah, tell me what are you seeing? And then it's just such a, I literally feel like I'm swimming in water, and when I'm, talking to her.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, Luca just texted me saying staying silent is also kind of colluding,
Yes.
which is
Right.
which is which is true. And I think there's a way that you can stay silent and agree with someone versus stay silent and hold space. And I like your
I think you
version
have the
where,
container. Yeah.
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 And also like I like your way of saying that, yes, like you hold space in the container and then
Mm-hmm.
give your feeling what that made you feel, so that you're not
Yeah.
agreeing or disagreeing, but you're like just
Yeah.
saying what your experience is.
Yeah.
I
It's
like that.
such a, it's very subtle, but it's not very easy to do because, you know, when you step outside of your comfort zone, which usually is your bedroom, and talk to
Yeah,
any other human being, you're gonna disagree with half of what they say, and
yeah.
you're gonna think they're wrong. So it's not to go into this stupid fight of who's right and wrong. It's to be like, I have no idea. And let me listen to this person and see what they're trying to say. And I may ask questions because I may don't understand what they're saying. And afterwards, I may get a sense of it, and maybe, just maybe, I may be able to give some feedback if that person wants. But if I don't even want to go there, I can stop earlier. That's it.
Right. Cool. I think that sounds like a good peak to end on. We've
Mm-hmm.
been going for 27 minutes. So I think let's end with yeah, I think this is a really amazing topic. If people have any questions, if they want to understand more, send us comments. Tell us how you collude. Tell us some
Yeah, yeah.
truth,
I was gonna
how
say that,
you've
like, I want to
experienced.
hear stories how you collude, and also even more important stories where you've learned. It's important to learn the language that takes you out from that collusion. When you actually had to say something to a friend like, "I'm not going there." This is important because that's what we don't hear. We are more used to hear the collusion stories rather than to hear what people did to prevent them, to stop them, or to change it. So this is probably what I personally would like to hear the most.
Yeah, in audio where I'm.
Yeah,
So yeah,
because
I think let's hear some stories. Uh, Tell us what your colluding stories are, and if you want more questions, ask us. It's such
yes.
an important topic in
Hmm.
connection, in building more intimacy, building deeper friendships, and building friendships and intimacy that is based on truth is such an
Hmm.
important thing to understand and practice in life. So yeah, tell us. And other than that, we'll be back next week.
Next week.
Oh, next week's my birthday. Um, so we'll
Ah,
see if
happy
we're gonna do
birthday
it
in
next week or
advance,
not.
Kapil.
Thank you. And tell us if you want us to hear to talk about a particular topic.
Hmm.
So give us some suggestions. We're open to it. Other than that, we will see you soon. Yeah,
Bye.
Dede. All right. Bye.
Bye bye.